Thank you.
Thank you for having me, everyone. Good morning. So I had meetings with Alexia and Daniel and Pat, and we were talking about well-being, doing an assessment, understanding where you're at. And so we had long discussions around how to best approach it. And so I will give you a little bit of an overview around well-being in organizations and how to create a shift. And then I'll talk a little bit around the different ways of how we can approach it. I think Alexia and the team have already decided then a third way, but I'll give you a bit of an overview of both so that you can really get a clear insight into all of it. In terms of the presentation, I have slides, but I'd like this to be quite relaxed. So any questions, don't wait till the end, just shoot them out. So I'm happy to have a dialogue around it. So in terms of well-being, the impact of well-being on performance and therefore on organizations has become bigger and bigger. We spoke about it just now in terms of how the world has changed. And people's well-being is fundamental to them being able to perform at a high level, which is obviously important for an organization. So ensuring the well-being of the people in an organization has become more and more complex over time. Younger generations have different expectations of how they would like their work-life balance to look, how they want their work in itself to look. Technical and managerial systems have an impact on us as human beings and how we operate. I mean, we all have our phones. We're constantly connected. There's an impact on us. And that has an impact on productivity and on well-being. So that's another element. And the third element is around the misalignment that sometimes happens between the purpose and the values of the organization and the purpose and values of employees. And that can create a misalignment and cause challenges around their well-being. But ultimately, well-being is to integrate the needs of the organization. Organization needs to be profitable, viable, successful, innovative. Integrating the needs of the organization with the needs of the employees so that they can contribute and make a difference there. So when we create employee well-being, what we're ultimately also creating is thriving people and a thriving organization. We look at it from that big picture view. And I want to give you a little bit of an overview in terms of what are we dealing with when it comes to well-being. And the main thing we're dealing with nowadays is negative emotions. And as you can see from this graph, this is just statistics. The biggest impact is worry and stress on people's well-being. And that it's coming from physical, mental exhaustion, overload at work, overload with information, with connectivity, and also the pace in which our world and our work is now functioning. Some of those things we obviously need to acknowledge that we can't change them necessarily, right? We can't go back to the step to our phones and our technology. We need those things, but we need to find better ways of working. And obviously the worry and the stress therefore has an impact on people's well-being. So the statistics say that 3 out of 5 employees suffer from work-related stress in negative ways, and that equates to about 59%, which means that 59% is not performing at a high level. They are performing at a lower level than what they would be capable of if they wouldn't suffer from the stress or the worry or whatever it might be that they are faced with. So, just curious, are you surprised by that number? Positively, negatively? Surprised?
Not surprised me
At all?
No, I think there are local issues which negatively affect Gibraltar in a very particular way in the last few years.
I think the reverse, actually. I think that Gibraltar, in particular, is a very protected entitled environment where there are a lot of benefits for people, a lot of job security. I noticed that you say it's US only, where the work environment is extremely different. You don't get your 28 days minimum holiday. You're almost shunned if you do take a holiday. You know, you get 1 day for Thanksgiving, you don't get the weekend or whatever it is. You know, health benefits, you've got to be there X amount of years. Gibraltar, instant, GHA, blah, blah, blah. You know, so I think the US is a different environment where they literally, you're fired, here's your box, you're out. You don't get month's notice, you don't get redundant, you're out the door. Gibraltar, I think, is a very protected environment. But it doesn't surprise me from the other point of view that, you know, stress is this bloody thing which we live in and everybody expects an instant response, you know.
Maybe the same amount of negativity, but for different reasons, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because of the imbalance there is between the civil service and the private sector. Many young people are working in the private sector and looking over the shoulder to their friends, and the total imbalance that is in the conditions they work in, and they pay, and that is demotivating more than stress. And that creates stress in itself, because they feel they're underpaid and they're not being treated well because their friend is in the civil service, not working at all and getting paid a lot of money. And that is more, I think, the problem here.
Peer pressure, expectation, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's so many issues.
And what you're saying there about, for example, the US in comparison to Gibraltar, when we're measuring well-being, when we're measuring culture, we're measuring it against something. And that something is 7 levels of organizational awareness. And the most basic level is viability, right? So the basic needs are taken care of. In Gibraltar, on that basic level, we're probably doing all right. It's the level further up where we might not be doing so well. Comparison to the US, they don't do very well at that basic level. And at the higher, some of the higher levels, they do better.
Yeah.
So again, and that's why it's so important to understand what is happening in the system, in the organization, but also what's happening around it. Right? When we're facing a problem or something we want to improve, we've got to look at the whole system, not just at the isolated view.
And it's not just, I mean, in Djibouti, where we have the benefit of family, you know? Granny and grandpa retire at 55 or 60, and they're the ones pushing the prams while mum and dad go out to work. You don't get that in the UK, in the US, you know? It's childcare and the cost of it and the stress of it and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, making those mortgage payments. Education, you know.
It all adds.
The materialism of the US is completely different to Europe.
So I think we can agree that there are different challenges, but in terms of the stress that people face, even though it's different, it's still there, it's still real, it still has an impact on their well-being, on how they feel and how they can ultimately perform and live their lives. I won't go into the detailed data because I don't think it's that important. But it's very, I'll send the slides out anyway, so there's more graphs about more detailed information. So when it comes to, obviously in the presentation, I talk about well-being and I talk about culture. And well-being at work has become something that's quite significant. A lot of organizations are putting a lot of emphasis on well-being in terms of one of their strategic objectives. And what I want to highlight is that a culture and organization impacts people's well-being more than we sometimes think. And so over the last probably 5 to 6 years, the importance of well-being at work has really become something mainstream. We all know about it. We all know we need to pay attention to it. And out of that, what has arisen is a lot of initiatives, fantastic initiatives from, free fruit at work, pizzas on Fridays, tools for managing people's mental health, people's physical health, etc., etc. And some of those things are really fantastic initiatives. But what we need to consider is they are an answer to the symptom. They will address the symptom of well-being. They will not address the cause, the root cause of well-being. Right? So if you imagine, if you're working in an organization that might be toxic, that is misaligned, maybe you're being micromanaged, whatever it might be, you have a lot of workload, you have a lot of stress, you are faced with it day after day after day. And yes, the organization provides you with free fruit and pizzas on Friday and maybe a gym membership to manage your health and well-being. What that means is that it's helpful to you to manage your well-being, but you will always be up against it. You keep going up the hill and working very, very hard just to be maintaining where you're at. At the end of the day, at best, we create a cycle of maintenance. Whereas if we look at the impact of our culture and at that cause, we can actually leverage up. People will still need to take care of their well-being. People still need to eat healthy and exercise, and we all need to do those things. But they are their personal responsibility, right? And we need to differentiate between individual personal responsibility and organizational responsibility. So a culture of high performance, ultimately, when I say culture of high performance, some people will go, oh God, more pressure, more stress. But actually what we're talking about, a culture of high performance is where people can bring themselves to work and fully contribute all that they have, which creates a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction for them, which in turn has a really big impact on their well-being, right? When I can sit to work and I can feel like I make a difference, I'm being respected, I can make a difference and I can contribute, that feels good and it increases my well-being. So a culture of high performance is a culture that is aligned in its purpose and its values. It has a human-centric approach to management and leadership. And there is opportunity and deliberate developmental opportunities and progression within the organization. So I want to invite you to sort of experience the possibilities of what I call a full spectrum organization. I mentioned earlier, we measure well-being, we measure culture in 7 values. And so what we want ideally is for an organization to operate on all 7 levels. We need an organization to be viable, we need to be financially successful, it needs to have good internal and external relationships, it needs to perform at a high level, it needs to be teamwork, collaboration, contribution, partnering, and also thinking about the contribution to the wider society. So I want you to just stand up for a moment and we'll just do a little, go to a little journey. So I'm going to read out a few statements, and if those statements resonate with you, if you feel they are true for this organization, then I want you to stay standing. If it doesn't feel true to this organization, I'd like you to sit down. Okay? And don't worry about if other people standing or sitting. This is very much about your perspective and how you are experiencing it. So you can stand up and sit down as often as you like. So you don't have to, once you sit down, you don't have to stay sitting. So imagine a company that is conscious and fair in the way it sets prices and pay, because it has moved beyond fear-driven greed and it is now profitable, financially stable, and creates a good shareholder return. And it also provides safe and comfortable working conditions for its people. When people walk into the office, each day they smile and greet each other warmly. There's a healthy sense of respect and customers feel well looked after.
And who?
And customers feel well looked after.
Oh, fathom.
The organization invests in high performance systems. It trains its people to be excellent at doing their jobs, and the staff are proud to tell others who they work for. The organization moves forward through innovation and continuous improvement. It has the ability and resilience to weather tough times. People feel empowered, have the courage to ask tough questions, and it is okay to make mistakes. People feel inspired by the vision and values. There are high levels of trust and a deep sense of purpose and team spirit.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Why, John?
This is a collaborative working environment for staff, customers, suppliers, and the community, where people focus on win-win for all concerned. The investment in leadership development means that leaders are making a sustainable difference inside and outside the organization.
Can you just repeat that?
Yes. This is a collaborative working environment for staff, customers, suppliers, and the community, where people focus on win-win for all concerned. And the investment in leadership development means that leaders are making a sustainable difference inside and outside the organization.
I'd sort of stay in the middle of it.
Reflected like this.
It's a bit 50-50, to be honest. Yeah. But it's the second half that I don't like.
I agree, yes. One, for people in this organization, ethics is not about compliance, but doing what they believe is right in their hearts. People know that by doing their jobs, they are serving society and future generations.
What section is that?
Not quite clear-cut answers for a few of them, with me.
Imagine yourself at the points where you were sitting down. Put yourself in the shoes of someone faced with that challenge, day after day after day. What's that feel like?
Particularly depressing. Tipping point eventually.
And how will you respond? If you were in those shoes, how will you respond? What will be your actions, your behaviors in that?
Lack of productivity. And it spreads.
Just look elsewhere. Try and find the grass greener somewhere else.
Lack of motivation, it spreads.
So recognizing that, how important has it become to pay attention to our culture and to well-being?
I think. What comes to mind is a quote I read recently about Ernest Shackleton when he placed an advert for people to join him on an expedition to the South Pole, and that advertisement read something like volunteers wanted for a very dangerous mission. Probability of surviving is poor, and painting a very bad picture. And he got exactly who he wanted. And one of the reasons why they say that he survived that terrible boat journey from the South Pole to South Georgia was because of the people that he had around him. And what they bought into was why they were going. It was the culture. Once you have people who share your culture and your objectives, what you're doing, once you share a vision, then everything sort of fits together and fits in. And I think that some of the problems that we're having is because maybe we're recruiting people who necessarily don't share the same vision or don't share the same culture. They're wanting one thing when we're offering something else. Or maybe we're not transmitting that culture enough. Maybe we're not sharing it. Maybe we're not.
I'd like to add to that as well, because after I had my first, we had a meeting here and you asked us what is MHM's core values? And I said, we don't actually, apart from strength and unity, which we publicize and we speak about, and I think we don't, since I've been here, we don't really share those core values, and so we don't share them. How can you expect people, our employees that work in MHM, in Gibraltar and outside of Gibraltar, how do you expect them to know what those core values are and what we actually stand for? And we do say that we're a family-led business, and I think here in the heart of MHM, at the HQ, I think that resonates, and I think that everyone here knows what the core values are without even having to publicize them. But then as you start going further away from essentially who are the heads of the business, then you start maybe increasing that slightly, and you don't feel that as much. And so I think that's why with this, and I think we'll come to it eventually, and we'll explain, we have divided it into different demographics in order to see how the differences start to prevail amongst. And since then, we have created core values, and we've sort of created a new quality management system, which is now ready to go live in the next week or so, which is pretty much where we were at with policies and procedures. But we now have a mission statement, we've got core values, we've sort of rearranged the whole system so that it's easier for our employees to read and find what they need to find. And we've incorporated a lot more stuff in terms of ethics, sustainability, human rights, a lot more that incorporates, I think once everyone reads that, and especially within the induction system, I think we need to improve that, because when we get new employees in, what we don't want, or what we find, or what we've had, is we just left it up to the managers, and maybe some managers do it better than others, and it's not a system where people come in and they can actually feel like they're part of something big. They don't sit here and watch a video and get a one package and the rest of it. I think that is probably one thing that we could improve on, and which we're now.
But we need to take it from words and paper
Yeah.
to actually how we transmit it, and that's the bit that I'm not. I don't get how we're going to do that, and that I think we need help on.
Yeah, so and what you were saying there essentially is the values are already there. The values are already lived by all of you. They don't necessarily cascade into all the directions that the organization.
The principal values, I'd say. But then I think one has to appreciate the society has changed. People's values, people's expectations have changed. You know, back in the day, you'd join a company at 16 and you'd retire at 65, and that was it. Now, there's more opportunities, people swap and change, people, want to improve. They can go abroad. They go abroad and then they come back and expect the same as what they were doing somewhere else. All those kind of things. Johnny mentioned, getting the right people. So the filter process at the interview stage and the CV stage and all of that, something that we've discussed quite a lot is the lack of quality in the potential employee pool in Gibraltar, or the kind of people who will work in the commercial sector rather than wanting to go to the government sector, which is a cushy job for life and so on. There are other issues than just filtering out to get the right people and then paying them the right amount of money. Which is money's not everything, but money is very definitely important. It's how you quantify your value to anybody, in the commercial sector. So it is important.
Absolutely, and that, there is a level that people need to reach where suddenly the other things become just as important or even more important. When we reach a level of financial stability where we're okay and we're not struggling, suddenly these other things become more important.
Of course.
But if you just offer a great culture that does not pay your people well, let's say, then they still like to leave, because even though they like the culture and like working where they are, they can't survive. And there's a challenge because it's different for all of us. We all have a different measure of what will be, a comfortable way of living. Comfortable
And
life.
also what Johnny said about Shackleton, which works for me a lot in the environment I need my guys to work. When I interview somebody, they're actually shocked. Sometimes they think I'm putting them off. I'm saying, look, I'm not putting you off. I'm just telling you the truth and nothing but the truth. I'm not going to put a rosy picture for you here. This is what you're going to be expected to do. You like this? Everything. I don't leave anything out, even if I need that guy. Because then when they come in, they're surprised or shocked, and then they're disappointed or not motivated enough. And that works for me a lot. And what Kelly says as well is true. Not everybody is capable of doing it that way when they interview. They need guidelines and help to do it that way. Put everything.
Can I put it a different way? When someone elects or chooses to buy a computer, a telephone, whatever, it's always the why. It's the emotional connection. I want it. I want it. It's not necessarily what he wants. It's not necessarily how he wants it. It's the emotional connection that person meets, and that's how you make the sale. That's how you get a person to join a company, because it's why he wants to join. He shares something, connection there.
The why relates, I'll just jump ahead and I'll come back. The why ultimately relates to our values, right? Our values are what drives our behavior. What's important to us, what I care about, is what will drive my behavior. That's the depth to which we go when we're looking at culture, and which why we have the culture assessment based on measuring values. Because those are the precursor to people's behaviors. When it comes to changing a culture, changing behavior, we need to start right where it originates, which is the values. So people's behaviors are driven by their values, and your culture is created by the collective behavior of everyone. So how everyone behaves, that's your culture. And like you were saying about here at the heart and center of MH Plan, the values are very much lived, right? Everyone has a sense of that culture, but it might not be trickling out into all of the directions, right? So that's when the cascading, there's a disconnect of the cascading, but there is potentially also a disconnect in terms of being made deliberate with those values and with those behaviors, and what are the behaviors that we want rather than the ones that we don't want. And that ultimately can then bring people in where that aligns, where that makes sense. Just want to go back because, I talk about a values-based approach. And when I talk about a values-based approach, quite often people at your level might say, wow, it's a bit fluffy, it's a bit soft, it's a bit weak, it's a bit relaxed, a bit laid back, a bit laissez-faire, right? But actually, a values-based approach is much tougher than we think. So the opposite to a values-based approach is a rules-based approach, which I think if we look back is when most organizations have originated, very much a rules-based approach. And rules are great. They keep us safe, right? We're just looking at driving, for example, right? Who drives? Who's driving? Cars and others, whatever. If you drive, you have to abide by rules to be safe, because if we all would just drive and go about it how we feel like it, there'd be chaos, there'd be accidents, it wouldn't be great, right? There's rules to keep us safe. But imagine you're driving, you're pulling up at a traffic light, it's red. What do we do? Stop. We know. Red light means we can't go further, we have to wait until it goes green, and we will do it. But now you have an ambulance coming behind you. Lights flaring, sirens blaring, you're blocking their way. The rule says you can't cross the red light.
No, you clearly said fine you.
When nobody's now it's behind you. What do you do? Do you abide by the rule? What do we do?
Use your initiative.
Which is
Doing what you consider is right.
To pull to one side.
Yeah.
based on.
Your value.
So there's two things. One is we're probably going to move out of the way if there's no pedestrian crossing. So if we're not going to run anyone over, we'll probably move out of the way and cross the red light, even though we're not supposed to. That's what we do. And the reason we do that is because we know the value of the rule. The value of the rule is public safety. So if we understand the value of the rule, we can break the rule because we know what the value is. The other part of it is it just doesn't feel right to be sitting there blocking an ambulance, stopping someone from potentially getting life-threatening treatment. There's something about our core or universal values that we all have embedded in us that it just doesn't feel right. So what we do is we have to think. We have to think outside the box and make a decision of what seems to be the right thing. So rules are great when the scenario or the situation that they were created for are the same, right? And you can apply the rule. But the reality is in today's world, in today's VUCA world,
VUCA stands for what?
VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, changing, and ambiguous. So that's the world we're in nowadays, right? I mean, COVID threw us right into it. We weren't aware of it before, we were chucked right into it during COVID. And in that sort of world where we're faced with complex challenges, this rule-based approach doesn't work because the rule wasn't made for the complexity of the world we're facing. Right? So values-based approach works better in being able to respond to the challenges we're facing in finding solutions. But it also means it engages people, your employees, to think. To not just operate on, well, this is what the computer tells me to do and what you're requesting. Sorry, computers, no. But it's helping people to think, to find solutions, and to move forward what's in the best interest of the customer, the organization, etc. So obviously, a values-based approach is therefore also an enabler of high performance because people can actually really bring all they have to work rather than just sticking to, I'm here to do this. It's focused on creating solutions and creating an adaptive organization that is very customer and human-centric. And obviously increased engagement, retention, and therefore the satisfaction. And that satisfaction is what relates to our well-being. So in short, a values-based approach creates high performance, and it does that through your values create your behavior as an individual. The collective behavior creates your organizational culture. The organizational culture then influences how you operate, and that enables or disables high performance, depending on what values you start with and what culture it creates. Because at the end of the day, every organization has values and has a culture. The question is it values and a culture that is intentionally created for best strategic outcomes, or is it just kind of what happened? Because of how the tone was set at the top, because of the people that are employed, and it just sort of happens. Or is there intention behind, well, what is it we're trying to create? Your thoughts so far? No, I've spoken a lot.
How do we get there? How tangibly what changes in our behavior are going to be required and will work for this company to transmit those values. I mean, is it a question of having a party every month and saying, hey, I mean, is that the way you do it? Or you know, I mean, I don't think so, but I don't know. I mean, how actually do we transmit those values? I mean, sometimes we had a discussion about it the other day, and sometimes you feel that if you behave in a certain way, some people just take advantage of what you're doing.
What's the problem we're trying to fix?
Question.
I don't know what the problem is.
I think the problem is that we have a sense of values and objectives. We see an aim for the company, you know, but that is not transmitted throughout the organization in a real sense that they share the same mission and values that we have, which leads to high performance or whatever. I mean, you know, we can talk about, and specifically the problems we're having in the shipping department at the moment in JIV, and there's peculiar to that department, and I think that relates in some way to what we're talking about here.
But can you in an organization like MH Plan, where you know we're all very different in your own departments, you know, dealing with stuff down at the port, it's completely different to the way I deal or administration from an Alex and from an IT point of view. Can you actually standardize? We're so varied in what we do that can we actually say this is gonna be throughout, because different people, different work, different expectations, and different standards. Yeah.
Very good point.
So can we say this is gonna be the MH Plan way? I don't think so, because in nature, you know, we're talking about very different species, you know. In different departments.
The core values should be the same in every department. Obviously, each department will operate differently because of exactly. But the core values should be the same. Or even when we go out to recruit those people, they should keep to those core values. You know, whatever they are. I haven't heard what.
This is what I'm. So can we actually say exactly what sort of values is it the ones we want to transmit? Are we talking about equality amongst women, that it has to be throughout the company? Is it about gay rights? Is that what we're talking about? Is that the values? Then we're saying that should be streamlined in the whole of the organization, or are we talking about other values?
There are some things that go, I think,
That has to be
across.
exactly.
But at the end of the day, people want to feel valued. They want to be appreciated. That is a combination of factors. You know, if you're in government, you're just a number, and you just, after 5 years you get here, and after 10 years you get there, and and you know exactly what your career path is going to be. In the commercial sector and private sector, you want to be appreciated for other things just other than money, but money is obviously a factor, but they also want to feel that they can progress. You know, it is very difficult. For example, the department that I run with the cable car attendant, he goes up and down 50 times a day, and you lose motivation after a while. You know, you guys in the shore excursions, and you're always dealing with new people, and there's an atmosphere there, you know.
Is a different environmental.
Stevedores is another environment.
Marine services is everything you've said in the group in one company. Marine services have
But
all kinds
the
of
thing that
sections.
you know, something that goes across all of you is that it's 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There is literally no holiday somewhere down the line, which is where you as directors, you live with this 24/7 weekends, and so do your staff on a duty basis, you know, and that has to be understood and appreciated and valued
What works for me,
in different ways.
and I understand everything that's being said, but I don't want to sound too clever. It's nothing I didn't apply already in the company I run, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not perfect. The company's not perfect, and I do have problems sometimes. But generally, all the teams within the company I run, and they are from different sectors, like Henry says, of different levels, from administration to down to people that are slinging pallets. Generally, the atmosphere is good, and I do have issues in between them sometimes, managing those issues because of the disparity in conditions and pay. But yet, if you approach it the right way, you manage it.
Yeah, but there are lots of things that you have certain values as a person, and then your corporate self, your business self, and you want to transmit that high standard of service, which makes you proud as an individual, and you're proud to work for a company which aspires to all of that.
Different kind of people.
You want that to transmit down. Alex says, what are we trying to fix?
I think that
Right?
is
I think a lot of what we're trying to fix is the training, to train people, to educate people about that standard of service. I'd like to think that I transmitted that to you when you came into the company, which had been transmitted to me by my father. And it starts with picking up the rubbish on the quayside. It transmits to the quality of the bus, the clean the bus, the driver is in a particular and you transmit all of that down the line, and then that driver who becomes a manager filters it down to the new driver, and so on and so forth. As I hope that we'll do to you and have done to you, and so on. As family members as well. But that I don't think we are necessarily good at. My son's just had the experience in the W Hotel. He turns up, the girl who was supposed to be training him leaves after a day, and he's left. I don't even have access to the system. How much does he feel valued? How does his behavior, transmit because of that? And then he thinks, well, who the fuck am I working for? And so he's grasping and learning by himself, and nobody trying really hard, and he said hello to the manager 3 times, and he feels afraid of asking, I need help, and we've got to transmit that as well.
But what you just described there in terms of picking up the rubbish on the curbside, those are value behaviors. So to answer your question earlier, values, it's health, it's safety, it's communication, it's collaboration, it's trust, it's empowerment, it's teamwork. All of those things are values. And when we have the right values in place, that's where our behaviors come from. And we can highlight the importance of certain behaviors of this is who we are as an organization. If I see rubbish, wherever I am at work, I'll pick it up, even if I didn't throw it on the floor. Like what I'm trying to do with my children.
Do you want that tourist to have a better experience because he comes into a clean Gibraltar, which then transmits to more business at the end of the day, which means more profit.
So I'm going to jump ahead a bit.
Anyone wants to, sorry, Kaylee, sorry.
Sorry, it's actually I wanted to answer Alex's question, because he said, what are we trying to fix? No, and I think that the answer reading here is that we don't exactly know.
No, yeah.
We know that every company can improve. There'd be cities feel that we can't improve in many ways because there's always room for improvement. And so the reason for doing this really is to put the onus, take it off of us and put it onto the employees and ask them. Because it's an anonymous viewpoint to it now, but it's a way of figuring out what are their values, what do they value most? Because we know we value most. And I think as we have interactions and we know where we're at, and I know where Johnny's at and George and where each of the directors are at, but where are they at? So what are their values and what do they value most? And that because we're going to split it up into different demographics, and in Marine as well, because Marine would be put in when they're office workers, they're office workers. If they're outside, then they'll be split up into those demographics, and so you can then see how that changes between each demographic, and then then we can figure out what is necessary in order to improve. And there'll be completely different things. Maybe office workers require completely different things to what people outside would need. And I think that's where this would be beneficial, because we can adapt that.
Why did each of us sit down to certain questions? We answer that question, and then you're beginning to understand what needs to be done in order to rectify it. I don't feel appreciated. I don't feel there's a culture of, whatever it is. If we can start to understand what are the issues, we can then begin the process of fixing the problem.
I also think that we have a lot of things that are in place that we're not doing. So we have a lot of policies, because now that I've been going through all the policies and procedures and rewriting and improving and the rest of it, I'm like, well, we don't do this anymore, and we don't do this anymore. And so it really is about getting back to the beginning and trying to reestablish what is worth doing and what isn't. And I think a lot of what comes with the values and feeling that you're valid is the stuff like the probation reviews, the annual employee reviews that departments, others are not done. And so when you actually get a chance to sit down with your manager, this is why it's so important, at the end of the year or beginning of the following year, and they can tell you, this is what you do right, this is how you're doing wrong, this is how you improve, you do this, and this is what you can get, and the rest of it. And unless you have that, I don't think that people will be or feel valued.
Sorry, I just pulled together some strings, some thoughts. Katie said earlier that, we've got a new quality system, new procedures, new documentation and so on, but she's going to roll out in the next couple of weeks and so on. But that can't be just a document, a piece of paper that doesn't convey personally what we're about. Then I thought of a conversation that I had a while back, that we were complaining in the shipping department here locally that we're getting newcomers, and the old timers whose values we want to transmit, and we want the old timers to train the new guys in the best practices and the best way of doing things. They weren't actually doing the training. It was the guy who'd been there for a month who was being put in charge of doing the training, so those values weren't being conveyed, and that was part of the problem that we were perhaps seeing in that department. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, so we need to transmit these values. We want to transmit best practices. We want to transmit this, and I'm thinking, how do we do that? Maybe we should do some interviews, some camera work, with the people who've been here for a while, and the values that we want to transmit, the messages we want to convey, and that prepare a video of something, some videos, and transmit it that way. Maybe that's an idea.
I mean, in today's world, I struggle to read all the documents he puts together. It's great that there's more, but how, I struggle to read the
Sorry.
It's boring, so there must be another way of transmitting that message, and then that may be using media and communication, where obviously brought in to help with that, communicate our message, communicate these policies, over the year, not just, okay, well, you join the company, read this, it takes you about a week to get through it all.
Definitely.
And then you forget about it, because, well, what did it say about what was my sick leave, or what can I do? I'm not allowed to wear this or wear that, or you forget all this. But really, the message should be going out all the time, but in a way that's approachable and understandable and relatable.
Yeah, and I haven't had the chance to introduce Albert to some of you. I know you don't know who he is, but he was brought on to basis on helping with the whole sustainability of the company and essentially this, which is why he's here. And so together and with marketing, I hope that in the next year, and I think we'll be able to make some improvements in doing that and actually taking out and bringing out on finding good ways in
Look, have you found that what we've actually introduced is actually helping? I mean, everybody who comes in now in Canada or any of the ESO will have to undergo a 2-day training course.
And it's that's just now incorporating the whole sustainability
side of things and onto new like
Incorporating it into that one key data. That's it. Yeah, but it's not in that.
So can I just bring it back to this? Because obviously
Can I
that
say
is-
something before you carry on, please?
Go on.
I've been quiet all morning.
Go on.
Very interesting, very interesting. I remember the chairman some time ago instructed me to write a paper outside the box. Remember? Okay. This actually consisted of me going around different departments. This is about 10 years ago, probably more, not sure. And I actually interviewed individuals to know more about their own personalities. I knew most of them, but I wanted to sort of have something really close to myself. And knowing the different positions, I went around, probably took me about 2 weeks, and I prepared this paper. And I remember Alexia saying, this should be done more often. It has never been done again. And that was about 10, 12 years ago. You remember, Alexia? Well, that hasn't been done. And I think, not by me, because I'm retired, but I don't mind helping. Should be done by somebody else. I think that was personal contact with individuals and not just, through emails, because a lot of things are done by email, WhatsApp, and we don't talk to each other the way we should. And I think that has been lost. I appreciate everything that is going on. I value what you're doing, a great job. And I know that Kaylee, Alexia, Mandy, Pat here, they do wonderful work apart from the newcomers, because we got newcomers here, human resources. Carlos here, maybe our friend here. So it's important that I would propose that occasionally is done, because there are people moving from job to job. People are happy now, they're not happy in 5 years' time, or they're happier in 5 years' time. So it's important, I think, that sort of contact, personal contact, human contact is maintained, and it's no longer there. That's my view.
Absolutely.
This-
I'm going to tie these two things.
Yeah.
We'll tie these two things together in terms of getting that message out, using media. But there's an important element around that, because that doesn't just speak to your people; it also speaks broader outside in terms of who you are as an organization. That human contact is really, really important. So when it comes to a culture assessment, essentially what we're doing is we're taking what's intangible, the culture that you know is there, and we're making it tangible. We have hard data on it. And based on this hard data, we then know where we are. This is our culture where we're at. And this would be our optimum culture. This is where we and everyone in the organization wants to get to. And with that, we can actually start the work. The assessment is not doing the work. The assessment is getting an understanding of what needs to happen. At that point, you have the conversations. You speak with teams, you speak with individuals, you cascade the behaviors down, and you work with your values and deliberately create that culture. It's not an automated thing. It can't be done automated. It has to be done human to human, because ultimately that's how we operate.
And this is where the essence of, from my point of view, and it's something that has been described to directors in the past, the human resources department plays, I think, a fundamental role. It is one of two departments really that transcends, maybe three with marketing, but less so, the human communication, right? The process started with what we call life belt, which is obtaining information about the staff, having it easily, readily accessible from directors to managers, and then actual staff inputting information, being able to look at, how many days off do I get, how many, what am I thinking? Getting all this information together, having the regular communication with human resources who call them in, having a mentoring program when you first arrive in the business so that you don't feel you're drowning and doing it alone. There's a whole bunch of things which then eliminate the issues further down the road. For that, you need to have a well-resourced department. The problem is in Gibraltar is getting the right quality people. You know, we had a hiccup before that the manager wasn't the right fit and all the rest of it, and Alejandro's now taken over. But it's a process to find the right people, and whether it's the filtering in the CVs or the training, you know, it's not just about money, but you know, it starts at the beginning. But the human resources department is the one that starts that process. You know,
and I appreciate the challenge to in Gibraltar with I work with organizations in the UK and in other parts of Europe, and they have challenges too, but their recruitment challenges are very different from Gibraltar. There is a need for skill and but in terms of the human resource department is a really important element. But the part not to forget is every leader and every manager in the organization has the responsibility to act and encourage and cascade the culture in that way and lead people in a way that fits with the culture. If there is a disconnect, then everything below that, there is a disconnect, right? So
it dilutes.
yes. So I'm just going to give you a very, very quick overview just because for transparency, I think it's important. I didn't do it earlier, right? We looked at the culture assessment and we looked at the well-being assessment. So the well-being assessment gets an understanding of the well-being of the entire organization and trying to understand the impact of culture, leadership, and the structures on the employees. And the well-being assessment will give you key areas to leverage for a quick fix, right? So the well-being assessment is one that I recommend. If your house is on fire, do the well-being assessment because it gives us really quick fixes, okay? The culture assessment is to identify the misalignment between the different aspects and to identify the entropy, which I'll share about in a moment. But the entropy is basically things that are negative undercurrents that are not working in the system, where there's a disconnect, etc. And the value of the culture assessment is you get an idea of where you're at and where you need to get to. And the value is in doing that work. If you're just doing the culture assessment to do the assessment, but don't work with it, don't spend the money. Only spend the money if you then got to do the work to work towards getting to that other place. And that work is long-term work. It's not a 3 months, 6 months. This is you're looking at a year of work. You redo the assessment. You should have improved. You will do another year and it continues because you're continuously managing your culture based on your strategic objectives.
Could I ask a question of everybody?
Yeah.
When did you all last do a performance review of your staff?
Do it every year, though.
Do you?
No.
Do you?
Managers just,
Do they?
I do it on my managers. I did it for Monster and 2 years.
Have you ever wanted to? You got to the point, didn't you, where you stopped wanting to do it because it was tiresome, boring, repetitive, or you didn't feel there was value?
Maybe because the culture that I worked for fits in.
For you. But maybe there's a member of staff who wants that opportunity once a year to sit down in front of you and talk to you. Not you talk to him talk to you. So
Every year, it's done every year.
is it?
Yes.
In your department?
But George, my department, every year.
So you can sit down, the rest of us stay standing. You know.
It's been lost in midnight.
I was told that it was company policy.
Yeah, exactly. But how many of us do it?
I've been doing it for years always, and I think that is critical that you do it all the time because people they're just waiting for that chance to say, okay,
You know?
I want to get there. And I always see in the appraisal that, okay, I need you to do this, and that. And I never seen an appraisal what you're expecting from the company give you. And I think that that's a part that's essential to be added because, you know, okay, I'm expecting you to do this.
I think we miss the two-way process of the performance review. That it's not just me talking to the manager or the manager talking to the member of staff. It's the upward
Yeah, organization asking you, okay, well, what they are expecting from the company. Okay, well, okay, development, more money.
anyway.
You hit on the core here on the leadership, because that's the third element, is the leadership assessment, where we do 360s, and actually you get that assessment upwards, conducted in the same way based on values and behaviors, right? How's my leader behaving? How are they showing up? How are they cascading it down? So we identify the leadership and management impact on the culture and therefore on well-being, and developing the leaders and the managers to operate from that full spectrum that you've all experienced when you were standing up, 7 levels. We want to have all leaders and all managers to operate from that level, because that ensures the organization operates.
Sorry, don't know who this is.
But we have, in our conversations, we've identified that actually starting with the culture was the most important element to understand where are we and where do you need to go, and what are the gaps? What are those, as you said, what is trying to fix? What are the challenges that need to be fixed, right? So essentially, I want to just cover the survey questions. Basically, it asks about people's individual values.
So are we doing surveys?
So the assessment is conducted in a survey approach. So they will get a link where they have to answer several questions, choose their values. It's done anonymously, and it all comes out in a full report. Okay. It gives you the current culture, and it gives you the optimum, the desired culture. The element that I mentioned earlier that's really important is it gives us the cultural entropy score. The cultural entropy is a measurement of the fear or dysfunction or negative, destructive energy at the parents that are in the system. And so, for example, a high level of bureaucracy, cost-cutting, hierarchy, micromanagement, those can all lead to a high entropy score. And those are things that are quick fixes. So we say that if the entropy score is above 40%, your organization is in crisis. At that point, you don't need an assessment to know. You would already know. If you were above 40%, you would already know that something's not working. If it's below 10%, the organization is healthy, but you don't want to be complacent. Anywhere in between, we just work with the entropy and we focus on that. In terms of how we spoke about the cultural assessment, is to divide the organization into demographics. What we mean by that is you have different sections, and you are highlighting how people are different and operate different in different areas. We get a different cut of the data. Instead of getting one data cut of everyone being the same, we have that, but we also have a cut of each demographic and what it looks like in each of those areas, so that we can be very targeted in, well, actually this team or this department, there are these challenges that we need to address. And over here, it's
Let's need to tweak them. How is it everybody in the organization, or is it
start with Gibraltar.
start with the whole of Gibraltar? Every employee,
Every employee.
even those who are not on email.
Yeah.
You know, some people.
Yeah.
We'll set up
Some of it paper, is some of it
all online. We'll set up
all online.
Computers.
the training round.
It'd be voluntary.
Well, you'll be asking them to come in and
Yeah.
set a computer and do a survey.
Yeah.
Only for those
Yes,
who don't have access to an email.
But do they have to do it?
Yeah.
They have to do it.
It's
Can it be done on the phone? Can it be done on the phone?
Pay the people.
Yeah, you just get someone else to do it for you and turn it over the phone. You could have someone there, but then.
No, I mean on a mobile phone. You know, electronic.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Can it be done on your
Yeah.
iPhone?
Yes. Yeah. It's a link. You click the link. It'll take you through it. Or you have to put your name in so that people can't submit twice. The name obviously doesn't get shown in the data. And then it will ask you 3 questions. First one is, what are your values? And you have all the values there, and you just pick them. You just click them as a next question. You click, do the same.
we talk about this and we say that maybe not include the names, just the position that you have in the company. Because maybe if I put the name on it, it's something that
So, yes. So the name is required for the data to be gathered so that I can't log in 2, 3, 4 times and basically skew the outcome of the data. But when we get the report, even where I get the report, because this I work within the Barrett's Value Center with this, they provide the survey. I don't get the names either. There's no way for me to see who has done what, and it states there very clearly your name is only required for your sign-in, but not for the results.
I think the fear is just some employees might feel that although we tell them that it's anonymous, it may not be entirely anonymous, and so they won't be entirely truthful. So if we do go ahead with this and we do it, then we need to have at least a 2-week period of promotion of material and encouraging them and really explaining to them prior to this happening that it is, they don't feel compelled to not give the right speech.
But the other element is, unlike many other assessments that you can do, I've worked with many different assessments over the years, is this is not an assessment that is asking you questions that you have to answer. You are just choosing value words. The question is literally choose 10 values, 10 value words from a list of over 100, how you see the organization operate you. That's it. I can't even say anything that's offensive to anyone when I do that, right?
Okay, but I go back to my original question. I mean, key values might be different in different departments.
Yes.
Are we going to spin that line down to departmental? In other words, everybody in Gibraltar within the Calypso Tours department, right, might have different things, different values to somebody in the IT department or somebody in the accounts department. And if we don't actually break it down, once you get all that information, it's just going to, just go into the one pot, and you're not really going to know what is important for that relevant department.
In other words, Calypso Tours might be doing really well on what Henry's doing, but Marine Services might not be performing as well in terms of some areas. So we need to know what department they're working in.
Otherwise, we're just going to have a lot of information from a lot of people, doing different work, and having different values on what they actually do.
So there will be different links. So because we're breaking it down into demographics, we will have different links for the Marine Department, for instance.
Okay.
So you each have one link. When I do the survey, I click the link, I put my name in, I answer the survey, and that goes into the results that are being generated as a demographic, as Marine Services, but it also goes into the whole
You
organization.
have group results and departmental.
And departmental results.
The questions in the survey, are they going to be tailor-made for the department you're going to ask them? Well, then, talking about some of my department, they're going to have to sit down with them and go through each question and explain it in their layman terms so that they understand because the wrong.
These are the questions. It's 3 questions. It's like the shortest.
Thing is,
This one you get.
I'm talking about academic level and understanding. Yeah. So
You might need to sit down with them to help them. But the first question is select 10 values from a list of your personal values. That's just about them. That's easy to answer. It's just about them. The second question is select 10 of the following values that most reflect your organization at the moment. Again, they just select 10 value words. Third question, please select 10 of the following values that would be desirable for your organization. So that's what you get into the optimum state. Survey complete.
We can try. That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. From that, we get the entropy score. From that, we get the alignment. From that, we get it broken down into many different ways so that we can work with the data to create the changes.
Is there a Spanish version?
Yes, say that. Yeah. So again, there'll just be separate links for.
You have concerns about whether it will grow, the value of it.
You're gonna tick the right box if we put a name on it. or what they really feel about the values that you're gonna include in the survey.
Yeah.
Because it could not be anonymous.
Well, it is anonymous. The data comes out of
The name.
Yes, it doesn't work otherwise. It can't work otherwise. But if you think about it, will it help you use the employee number?
Still identifies it.
Yes. They're not putting in a name.
Only way would be to each person to receive a unique link, which they click, which takes them to the form. The link will identify them as who they are. They anonymously matter. They don't have input.
But essentially, it still does the same.
It doesn't say,
Identifies them
they
as who they are.
don't see.
This is why I thought, employee number.
They don't see that they're putting down their name.
Yeah.
That's the only difference. But you will be able to know that that's a unique
I
link.
can't imagine there's many people in our organisation that will be arsed to fill in the survey.
Maybe what?
Will be arsed to fill in the survey.
Bothered.
More than once.
Bothered to fill in it in more than once.
Yeah. No, it's just the anonymity of it.
That's what I mean.
If they want to criticize.
So don't have a name. I mean, if there's a rogue out there, really, just be spending the time filling in 50 surveys.
No, but it's not that. It's to tell the truth.
Yeah, so
that's what I mean.
To be honest
So
with you,
you
to
wanna be-
remove the names, I would have to go back to the Barrett's Value Centre, who basically operates the survey for me and gives me the data, to see whether that's even possible to not have the names and just put it out there. I don't know if that's possible because obviously it's all set up. And these surveys get done all over the world. I gave you guys a report. A sample report of, I think it was marine and tourism, and it compared you also to the rest of the world and all the organizations that had done it in the same industry.
I think perhaps we shouldn't overthink it.
I think so.
And if people are going to do it, there's a 5-10% sort of margin of error, so to speak. They should take it into account, and that's it. Move on.
And another question: why are we only doing it Gibraltar base?
We start Gibraltar base.
Start with.
But I think, as Kelly rightly said, I mean, Gibraltar, it's probably more geared up in all this because we're all here. I think the outstations are really the ones, and you highlighted this.
No, I agree. It's just
We are more familiarized with our values, with what we do and what have you. Why? Because we are head office. I would really like to see what the outstations
I
are.
agree.
Because I'm sure that maybe even their problem is that they're not taken into consideration as much as the DIP people.
I think this idea
I
was because
totally
of the
agree.
cost.
So I don't think it just should be Gibraltar base. I think it should be company.
Was there a cost on the number of people?
Yeah.
So like,
Once you
I don't know how many people are working outside of Gibraltar. Massive. So I don't know if that will change our gas.
If you go above 200, it changes. Where are you answering? Where are we?
Well, below 100, below 200 at the moment. If we include them, we're about 200.
Yeah.
And is it a massive difference? Because if it's not a massive difference, I think we'll be able to collect better information.
I agree.
It's essentially well,
If you're going to do it right.
the report itself, it's a 325 pounds difference. But if you have each demographic is 365 instead of 350 at that number. So it's not huge amounts. I mean, I can send you the data. If you tell me how many more people and how many more demographics, I can send you the breakdown.
We're below 250 in total. No, everywhere.
Total.
And Morocco? No, we do Morocco too.
Everywhere?
Morocco?
I suppose.
Do you know how we go to Morocco? Cuba?
Cuba.
And obviously, what's Morocco?
Not Cuba yet, but
yeah, Malta, the whole of Spain.
The value you have if you include them is that you have also the time for everyone collected,
no, better to include.
right? Whereas you can't include them later on.
Okay, and we
At some point, generally, when you see like have an employee satisfaction survey go out, so in a way, although it's not specific to, I think having specific questions is going to really open the doors for more
Yep.
more comments and more things to sit through, and then what do we do with it? And in this sense, I think we just get values. And then we get Krista to tell us what we can do.
So what happens is we do the assessment, and then I will get the assessment data. I will spend some time reviewing it. Then we will come back in this space to debrief it. And that involves you looking at the data, getting under the skin of it, and deciding what are the key areas. We may also need to do that debrief with each demographic or department we have done as well, so that we can identify the key areas to develop. And then from there, we put together a development plan. And from there, you can either utilize me as you need me to support you and creating those changes. And also, you've got all of you guys here to, to be involved in creating those changes. But that's where the value is. The assessment is really not that's just data and giving us the starting point. The value is in implementing and moving it forward.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
I'm curious, what are you taking away from this for yourself, for your department, and for the organization as a whole?
We're going to be doing this.
That's the blood-sucking Scottish accountant. And how much is it going to cost?
I haven't asked that. I'm going to.
I'll give you mine second. I think there are areas where a company benefit.
I think that the third one is the most, and that will be giving us more value. Very well, and make the company to change. Yeah. Okay, but to be honest, when I started here in the company, very new here, I was shocked in the nice way. It was the first company, so many years of working. That people were not criticizing each other. No, not criticizing somebody. Shocked when people were just flats, everybody, never seen it before. You know what I mean? And they never criticize anybody. When you go for CD, people just shut it up. Yeah, they were only talking good things. Well, the thing, and one of the major thing, welcome to the family, that hurts a lot. On there to Josh in the Christmas party, I said, oh my God. I'm standing in that, I said, yeah, because my father, my grandfather, you are as good as your people, really nice. I think I did a very good job. First point, for sure. The third point, the bigger, most part, more sequence, it works.
For me, it's something that I have been wanting to work at, because I feel that with COVID and everything that's been going on in the last few years has sort of taken our eyes off the ball. I feel that we need to refocus on this. So this is a useful exercise from me, from my point of view.
For me, being from a younger demographic than everyone else in the boardroom, for me, it's making sure that the company is going in the right direction and understanding where our employees are, who are the core center of our company, where they want to go, and help the company go in that direction.
I think that just by doing the surveying, you're already showing the employees that we care and that just by doing the survey and understanding what they're finding, that has some value.
It's pure exercise.
Yes. Yeah.
So for that reason alone, we must include Spain more.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
We should.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot more engagement between management, directors, or admin, HR, quality, and health and safety, and it needs to filter down. I do think that, and it's something that Alejandro and I have identified, and now has been resolved with you to a degree. First step, resources. I think HR needs to be properly resourced with qualified, good people. Your department too. It then allows you to get out. We've all had the conversations of managers, directors. You need to fill in these forms. You need to engage. You need to participate, and that then filters down. I think the value this is a discussion I have with clients. The value of the human resources department is underappreciated. Everybody wants everything, but in order to facilitate a lot of the things that you discussed, which Alejandro has his own list, which includes a lot of this, you need the resources to facilitate it all, to communicate, to get the feed both ways. I want to instill my values in you, but I also want to understand what you need in order to do your job. It's a two-way street, and sometimes, and this is part of the problem that we've discussed, the balance between the giving and the expecting, and in Gibraltar, you want to pop out to the dentist, of course, take half an hour, don't worry. But when you ask for the extra half hour, or can you stay a couple of hours this week because, we need invoicing done, oh no, I've got to go home. No, I'm on summer hours. No, I need my lunch break. I'm going to give you a bonus this year, and next year you're going to ask me, even if the company does badly, where's my frigging bonus? Yeah. You do it after 2 years, and it becomes taken for granted. If you're generous with the overtime or whatever it is, or the pay rise, well, the employer also would like something back sometimes when there's a need. And obviously around this table, they all work 24/7, but sometimes in today's modern young environment, and especially with the competition we have from government, it's not my problem. Employ more people. If the invoicing isn't done.
I'm surprised how often, and I've just done one recently where the same thing happened, where actually in the last question, in the optimum culture, the top scoring value that basically the whole organization was asking for was more accountability. Right? The system knows what it needs. The system knows what it needs.
Yeah.
And we can work with that.
And sometimes you need to be tougher.
Yes.
We try and create an environment.
Between support.
We're trying to create an environment of support and friendly, and we're pally, and that sometimes you actually do need to balance that with toughness, and that comes from experience of leadership.
If you look at it from a well-being perspective, very simplified, if someone is in a difficult place with their well-being, and you just support them, you're there for them to support them, it's okay, take time off, all of that, and you don't challenge them, they will never come out of that. There has to be equally match between support and challenge.
The crutch becomes permanent.
We're not helping people, we're not serving them, we're actually doing them a disservice by disabling them, right?
A child learns to walk by watching, supporting, helping, and then doing it themselves without the safety net eventually. And a member of staff is exactly the same. And in order to get there, you need to be tough sometimes.
Yeah, I think the accountability is out here to be brought back. There's that accountability every
This was a Jib company.
It was
a Jib company.
In the UK, everybody is like, I know for this process. If I'm late, I stay late. I get stressed. My head starts spiking. I do my hours. I work Saturday. But here it's like
5 o'clock.
It's quite problem. And being fortunate, I think that is more about motivating stuff. That well, you need to do that. But you're not gonna get anywhere. It's about I give you and expecting that.
I've got my own opinion as to why, and possibly you will all laugh us out it. As to why every time we have all been seeing ourselves all different traits from how we used to do things and how we do it today. And actually, Clive has hit the nail on the head. It's a human touch. Yeah. I agree that technology nowadays has gone very far. Is that you, Clive?
No.
Sorry.
He's got to take his pill.
He was sign grown.
Technology has gone a very long way to make us more effective, more efficient, and the personal touch is gone. the day where people used to call each other and not just send an email.
Yes.
Those days are gone. The times that I have to keep on reminding my staff, our clients, give them a call, give the ship a call. Yeah, they will appreciate it. You will solve it in 2 minutes rather than 20 emails. Yeah, and that is and we're losing that. And I think personally, I think we as a company, yeah, that has had a knock-on effect on all of us. Yeah, I mean, cool, we're losing it.
I think it also applies to this thing about the company policy that George has mentioned and you have mentioned of staff reviews every year.
The
The staff review every year.
it's informative.
And we've tried to do this many times before. I'm one of the culprits that fails. But it's what he says, technology and the human touch. Define how we review a person every year. Because some people might need to do it by sitting them down every year and filling this form, which is a cold way of doing it, because they never see it. I see every member of my staff every day and nearly speak to all of them every day for one reason or another, asking them a question or having an argument or telling them off. So what kind of review do I do to my staff every year? Might not necessarily be the one that the policy wants to impose. That's why I fail.
Well, then the system of the review
That's different. That's different. That's different because
you change.
human touch. It's definitely human touch, but it's also given them an opportunity, right? Every day, though, to put down in writing, right? What they want to say, and that is once a year. Yeah, I agree. You have to do that every day. You have to speak to your staff every day, and we do that. Yeah, but I'm going. My point is not that one. My point is that, Johnny sends me emails. George sends me emails. We're all sending emails, right? How about picking the phone one day? And let's go back to the day when we used to talk to each
The
other.
structure of the review of the paper, the form can be changed, adapted per department. But remember that remember that most of the performance review format is filled in by the employee themselves. If I seem to remember, it's the box at the bottom, which is the manager after an interview.
Changed it now to make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
I spoke to Pan, Alejandro.
But it's also the structure in which it's done, the methodology of how it's done,
To be able to fill it in online.
how it's done. The quality of it sometimes doesn't fit the environment you're in.
On that, yeah, it has to be adapted. Understood. Point taken.
Oh yeah.
What I'm taking from here is that there's a lot of fruitful dialogue in this room already. And I can see that if you have the assessment data, there'll be even more fruitful dialogue to actually take some of that and move it forward.
So on that note, we can go for coffee.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner.